When the photos dropped, time seemed to stop. In a world addicted to perfection and performance, the quiet hum of midnight turned into a storm of notifications, hashtags, and disbelief. The images, slightly grainy yet unmistakably real, spread faster than wildfire across Seoul's sleepless networks. Two familiar faces, Yoona and Chae-min, once thought to exist only in the glossy distance of the screen, were caught in a moment that broke the illusion. They were smiling, not for the cameras, not for the stage, but for each other. Within minutes, the internet turned into a battlefield. Is this real? Photoshop? Impossible. Fans across Asia refreshed their feeds in shock, their timelines flooding with reposts, rumors, and shaky translations. The headlines hit within the hour: Yoona and Chae-min spotted together late night, romantic getaway. The line between fiction and reality blurred so quickly that even the most devoted followers didn't know whether to scream, cry, or laugh. The air felt charged, like lightning waiting to strike. The people in question had always radiated chemistry on screen. They had mastered the art of keeping their private lives invisible. No scandal, no gossip. Late-night hints. They were the industry's golden images, perfect, untouchable, professional. Photos told a different story, a story that didn't ask for permission to exist. The first image showed them sitting by a riverside cafe, sharing something small and tender, a quiet laugh, an exchanged glance. The second captured them walking under a street lamp, faces half hidden by masks. The eyes gave it all away. That soft familiarity, that instinctive closeness, no script could fake it. Someone had taken those photos from a distance, through a lens that turned private warmth into public evidence. Within hours, millions had seen what was never meant to be seen. In the chaos that followed, fandom split apart. Some cried betrayal, our idol would never do this. Others defended fiercely, she deserves happiness like anyone else. One fan's post went viral: why are we so shocked that love exists? Are we angry because it's real? The comment section became a war zone. Words hurled like weapons between strangers who had never met but suddenly stood on opposite sides of an emotional divide. TV networks scrambled for statements. Entertainment agencies refused to comment. Journalists camped outside studios, hoping for a reaction, a denial, a clarification, anything. But silence hung thick over Seoul's neon skyline. It was the kind of silence that feels louder than words. People wondered who leaked the photos: a passerby, a photographer, or someone closer? Speculation turned the night into a mystery thriller, complete with conspiracies and anonymous tips. For years, Yoona had been the symbol of grace, the girl who never slipped, never stumbled. Chae-min, younger but rising fast, carried the image of innocence and ambition. Their names together in one headline felt unreal, almost forbidden. To some, the ultimate fantasy; to others, a devastating betrayal. A simple truth of human connection had been transformed into scandal. As dawn approached, the streets of Seoul seemed to hum with the aftermath. Fans gathered outside their management buildings, holding banners of heartbreak and defense alike. News anchors repeated the same question with different tones: were the photos real? Every word, every pause became part of the nation's morning conversation. But behind the noise, the two people at the center of it all remained hidden. No social media update, no statement, only silence, heavy, deliberate, defiant. That silence drove the world mad. Rumors multiplied. Some said they had gone abroad. Others claimed they were still together in the city, shielded by the walls of an expensive apartment. No one knew. Everyone pretended to. As the day passed, digital detectives began piecing together the timeline. The cafe was identified. The street lamp matched. Even the jacket Chae-min wore was traced back to a recent brand event. There was no escape. The digital trail confirmed what everyone feared and secretly thrilled at. The fantasy had cracked. And behind it stood something raw, love, messy and unfiltered. Late-night talk shows debated the meaning of privacy in a public life. Commentators argued that idols lived on the worship of fans and therefore owed them the illusion. Others countered that love shouldn't be a crime. One host summed it up with chilling precision: they fell in love in a world that punishes sincerity. The pressure was suffocating. Online, every photo was analyzed, zoomed in, dissected like a crime scene. Look at how she's smiling here, that's real. His hand, see how protective it looks. Everyone became an expert in decoding emotions they had no right to interpret. What was once intimate had become communal property. But somewhere between the rage and obsession, a smaller voice emerged, soft, hopeful, human. It said, "Let them love. For once. Let them be more than their image." That voice spread quietly. Through headlines but through whispers, fandom posts, and late-night reflections. Maybe, people thought, this wasn't a scandal. Maybe it was something else, something honest. The first night faded into morning. Both Yoona and Chae-min were nowhere to be found. Their agencies kept phones off. Their managers disappeared from the media radar. Uncertainty only fueled the frenzy. News helicopters circled neighborhoods rumored to be theirs. Paparazzi camped at airports. Yet, the world heard nothing. In that silence, stories began to take shape, myths born from confusion. Some said Yoona was crying, others said she was calm. Some believed Chae-min had been the one to confess first. That he was ready to face the storm. No one could confirm anything. But the speculation itself became entertainment. Meanwhile, in the heart of the city, a billboard still played a clip of their drama, the one that first brought them together. Ironically, it was a scene where their characters confessed their love under the rain. Crowds gathered to watch it replay, over and over, as if trying to decode what was real and what was performance. The city had turned their love story into a living, breathing spectacle. That night, a small anonymous post appeared on a fan forum. They were real. I saw them. They were just two people trying to hold hands in peace. Soon deleted. But screenshots spread everywhere. That one sentence, simple, direct, human, became the whisper that outshone all the chaos. As the second night came, the frenzy reached its peak. Hashtags trended across continents. International news picked it up. Commentators compared it to the biggest celebrity revelations of the decade. But under all that noise, something more intimate was happening, a quiet shift in the way people looked at love, fame, and truth. Because in the end, it wasn't just about two people being caught. It was about what they represented, vulnerability in a place that worships perfection. And then, just when the rumors started to burn out, something unexpected happened. A post, short, calm, and devastatingly clear, appeared on Yoona's verified account. No caption. No explanation. Just one sentence. The photos were real. The internet exploded once more. But this time, the shock felt different. It wasn't disbelief, it was awe. In a world built on denial, had chosen truth. The confession echoed through every corner of the digital world, redefining what it meant to be an idol. That was the night everything changed. The night silence turned into confession. The night love refused to hide. And though no one knew what would come next, one thing became clear: this wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was the beginning of something raw, brave, and unforgettable. The world froze again when Yoona's post appeared. The photos were real. 5 words. 5 words that shattered walls built from a decade of silence, illusion, and control. The statement wasn't just a confession, it was rebellion. It was love refusing to hide behind PR statements and denials crafted by men in suits. It was the raw heartbeat of a woman who had lived too long inside a glass castle. Hours, the post stood alone, unedited, unaccompanied by explanation or emoji. And yet, it spoke louder than any press release ever could. Within minutes, it reached millions. Comments flooded in, some with tears, some with anger, some with awe. The internet's pulse changed, no longer chaotic, but breathless. People were waiting for the next move. Next heartbeat in a story that had become more real than any drama they'd watched her in. The next morning, Chae-min broke his silence. His statement was simple too: yes, we're together. I won't apologize for being human. That sentence hit like thunder. In an industry built on restraint, he had chosen vulnerability. Move so unexpected, so uncalculated, that it felt revolutionary. The backlash came instantly. Advertisers froze campaigns. Talk shows dissected every word. Analysts debated whether this would end his career or elevate him into a symbol of authenticity. But among fans, something else was stirring: admiration. For once, an idol wasn't performing perfection, he was living truth. In the days that followed, Seoul became a mirror of contradiction. Billboards showing Yoona's flawless face now seemed to flicker with new meaning. The same smile that once represented fantasy now carried defiance. Outside her agency, supporters left flowers, not just of sympathy, but of respect. "Thank you for being honest," read one note. "Made me believe in courage again," said another. But inside closed doors, the atmosphere was tense. Executives argued over contracts. Sponsors whispered about reputations. And every publicist in the city drafted 100 versions of possible damage control. Yet, nothing they wrote felt right. Because this wasn't a scandal they could spin, it was a human truth too big to hide behind polished language. The news spread beyond Korea. International outlets called it the most shocking yet liberating confession in Asian entertainment. Western media labeled Yoona the woman who broke the idol code. Haters debated whether this would change the K-entertainment industry forever. But in the middle of all that noise, them disappeared again. No interviews, no appearances, no photos. Just silence. Silence, however, didn't feel like fear anymore. It felt like peace. Rumors claimed they were seen near the countryside, living quietly away from the city lights. A blurry photo of a woman who looked like Yoona buying flowers at a small market surfaced online, her face half hidden by a mask. But the gentleness in her gesture unmistakable. Wondered if Chae-min was with her. No one could confirm, but somehow, it didn't matter anymore. The world didn't need proof this time. They had already seen enough. What people didn't know was how hard it had been before that confession. Months of hiding. Of sneaking through back doors and disguising love as coincidence. The weight of secrecy had almost broken them. Each text message, each meeting, each look across a crowded set felt like walking on glass. They had lived in the shadows. Was waiting for the inevitable, the moment when the truth would no longer fit in the dark. So when the photos leaked, the decision to tell the truth wasn't impulsive, it was liberation. Yoona had written the words days before. If she'd ever post them, Chae-min had begged her not to shoulder it alone. And when she finally pressed share, it wasn't just her truth, it was theirs. The confession sent shockwaves. But it also cracked open a deeper question: why did love have to be a scandal? Why did humanity feel like rebellion when lived by people in the public eye? Across social media, young fans began using a new hashtag, Real Love Movement, as a call for acceptance. Not just for idols, but for everyone afraid to be seen. If Yoona can love openly, one tweet said, "Yeah, I can, too." Within weeks, the narrative began to change. What started as outrage slowly transformed into understanding. Journalists began writing less about betrayal and more about bravery. Editorials asked whether the entertainment industry was ready to evolve. Professors discussed it in lectures about media ethics and celebrity culture. Yoona, once the emblem of controlled grace, had become the face of emotional honesty. And Chae-min, labeled the rookie heartthrob, became the unexpected symbol of courage. They didn't set out to change the world, but they had. Months later, they reappeared. Quietly. No grand statement. No staged photo op. They attended a charity event. Walking side by side. Cameras clicked furiously. But their expressions remained calm, not defensive, not afraid. Just calm. She smiled first. At her the way he always had, like the chaos around them didn't exist. That moment was enough to silence the crowd. It was the quiet victory of two souls who had endured the storm and come out unbroken. The public began to soften. Networks that had once condemned them now praised their strength. Fashion magazines requested interviews under new headlines, the faces of fearless love. Even those who once doubted them began to admire their grace under fire. Beyond the fame and forgiveness, something deeper had shifted, the way people saw idols. The way they saw truth. It wasn't about gossip anymore, it was about empathy. People realized how fragile the curtain between reality and illusion had always been. They began to question why authenticity had to be punished. Love was considered weakness. As for Yoona and Chae-min, they never confirmed another rumor again. They stopped explaining, stopped defending. Their silence became their statement, a declaration that they no longer needed permission to exist. They were seen sometimes. In restaurants, at art galleries, or walking by the river at dusk. Always distant enough to remain mysterious, but close enough to remind the world that love had survived. Years later, when asked about that moment, Yoona reportedly smiled and said only, "It wasn't a scandal. It was a beginning." Her eyes sparkled the same way they had in those leaked photos, unguarded, alive, free. And perhaps that was the final lesson of it all, that truth, once spoken, can't be buried again. That love, when exposed to the harshest lights, can remain soft, human, undefeated. The story that began with a scandal ended as a symbol. Two people, once trapped by the expectations of millions, had rewritten the narrative of fame. Their courage became contagious. Their love became legend. The world moved on. The echoes of that night, the flashes, the panic, the confession, lingered not as shame, but as proof that even in a world built on performance, love can still be real. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is tell the truth. And sometimes, the truth is the most beautiful scandal of all.